Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Bethanne. Today I want to talk about Over the Woodward Wall by Deborah Baker, which is a pen name for Seanan McGuire. And McGuire is well known for her book Middle Game and for the Wayward Children series. And I actually haven't read Middle Game, and I need to because I read this book, Over the Woodward Wall, without realizing that it's somehow connected to Middle Game. This is the first book in a new series, so I certainly got, I think, everything I'm supposed to get out of it, not having read Middle Game. I think it is supposed to be its own thing. But I haven't read Middle Game yet, and given that that's one of the things McGuire is most, I think she's most famous for that, I'm excited to go and read that. I have read the Wayward Children series, which is absolutely fantastic, and I actually like better than this book. This book didn't quite hit the quality of that series for me. If you've read that series, it's very similar in terms of the tone, but it doesn't quite get there. I think the main characters aren't quite as fleshed out as they are in the Wayward Children series, and there's kind of a bit less of an overarching plot. This is really pretty simply reading as an adventure story. Two kids, it's a portal world fantasy. Two kids fall into another world, and adventures just kind of linearly keep happening to them. So just to get that out of the way for people who are familiar with McGuire's other work. So that said, I did really love this story. I did give it 4 stars, so it is excellent. It's just not quite up to the 5-star standard that I've given to the Wayward Children series. So for those who aren't familiar with McGuire, this is all of her stories, at least that I've read so far, are portal world fantasies. And so it's kids that are often misfits in some way, shape, or form in our world who get pulled into another world. And the thing that she just does so perfectly is capture the magic of childhood, but right on the cusp of moving into adulthood. So these books are actually hard for me to classify. I think they are young adult in the sense that the main characters are always teenagers or preteens, but the way that the characters are written, it really captures that kind of crossing over feeling of growing up. And so even though they're dealing with things that are very kind of coming of age, they're often, especially in the Wayward Children series, often struggling with burgeoning romantic lives. And they have kind of a child's wonder and appreciation and acceptance of magic. There's just quite a lot of commentary about adulthood. And so I think these books are just really fantastic. And I've only read McGuire's work as an adult and fell in love with the books that way. And I wish that they'd been around when I was a teenager because I would have appreciated them just as much, if not more, reading them as a teenager. But so for one example of just how McGuire kind of captures that like in-betweenness of young adulthood. So at the very beginning of the book, one of the protagonists is walking from home to school. And in the course of that walk, she does get pulled into the fantasy world. But in the course of her walk, she runs into a big water main break and there's a hole in the street. So a woman in an orange safety vest paused in the process of setting another caution sign near the edge of the hole and called, "Hey, you can't be here." Zib, the main character, who was very much present, stopped and blinked at her. Adults were always saying things like that. "You can't be here" didn't change the fact that here was a place and Zib was already in the place, making the statement nonsensical at best and false at worst. So McGuire just peppers that. I mean, that's just so much of her writing is just kind of these very accurate kind of takes that just explain kind of that feeling of being a kid trying to figure out how the adult world works, and also being an adult feeling like a lot of the things that we do don't make sense. So I just love that aspect of McGuire's writing just in general. Okay, so in this book, I mentioned two kids get pulled into a fantasy world, and adventures ensue. They're basically, anybody who gets pulled into this world is kind of up for grabs, and there are two kings and two queens who it seems like are going to kind of try to be grabbing any new children that run into this world. And so in the course of kind of their quest to try to figure out a way to get back to their world, they run into a whole host of helpers that help them out at various points along their journey, and evil beings who try to stop them or try to change them in ways that would make them have to stay in the fantasy world. Um, and it's just a very well done adventure story. The one critique really that made this a 4-star book for me instead of a 5-star is that from the beginning of the book, um, so I didn't go into it knowing that it was going to be a series, so that might just be on me. But reading the book, there was none of that setup that kind of lets you know that a bigger series is coming. There wasn't any kind of framework that lets you know that there might be multiple stories or multiple points of view. There wasn't any overarching plot or quest that you just automatically encounter and think, oh yeah, this might take more than one book, just 2 kids on a quest to go back home. And as I was getting towards the end of the book, things were just still happening and there was no wrap up. And I was like 10 pages from the end and I was like, what is going to happen in these last 10 pages to get these kids home? And then boom, surprise, nothing is resolved because their quest is going to continue. So that was really kind of the only critique that I had, was just that it lacked that overall narrative arc that really, to me, is going to push it into the next book. I'm definitely going to read the next book, but it's not quite as exciting because I'm just like, oh, I get another book about these kids trying to go home. That's not as compelling as, I don't know, as I feel like series usually are. So that might just be me. It was just a bit jarring at the end to have that happen. But if you want just like magical escape, short fantasy, it's only about 200 pages, excuse me. It's very quick to read. And there's magical talking owls, which is one of my favorite parts. This is just a lovely book. To me, reading McGuire's books, it kind of feels like getting a hug, but it's not cozy in the way of just like everything is feel good. Like the book is about children who are in danger, and like nothing horribly, extremely bad happens in McGuire's stories, at least the ones that I've read so far. But it is children in danger. Like that's not quite cozy, but it's the way that she writes about that like tension between being a teenager and between being an adult, and kind of critiques what it is to be an adult, and really embraces the magical world of children. That just feels kind of cozy, but in a realistic sense. Like these books acknowledge all the bad stuff about the world. A lot of her characters, especially in the Wayward Children series, are ones who've experienced a lot of trauma or pain in the real world. And so acknowledging that all of that exists, and still kind of carving out like a cozy place, carving out friendship and love despite that is a big theme. And this book carries that through pretty well, I think. So anyway, I feel like I'm rambling. So I love this book, 4 stars, great quick fantasy read, highly recommend. Also the Wayward Children series, if anyone isn't familiar with that, you should definitely go check that out. I think it starts with Every Heart a Doorway. Yeah, that's all I'll say about this book. So thanks for checking out this video. If you like what I'm doing, please hit subscribe. I'd love to see a comment if you've read this book and what you thought about it, or if you might like to read this book. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.